Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome to our second show as Craft Mind, and today we'll be looking at another very interesting topic. And this topic is on the intelligences. We'll be tackling a number of questions, and very few indeed. Um, One of the most pertinent questions that we are accustomed to in our lines of career and in everything that we do, it could be, how does your intelligence affect your career? From the onset, we are raised thinking that once you can interpret graphical data, once you can, you have the capacity like to pass tests, especially tests which are mathematical in nature. Once you can recall historical facts, then you are intelligent. But during this show, let's analyze and see, is this really what it means to be intelligent? Is it easy for you to get better at things you're not naturally good at? And then also, why are some people bold and outgoing while others remain shy? Well, all these questions, we'll be tackling them during this show. A number of us will be joining us shortly, but we see in the year 1983, there was a very interesting psychologist who came to demystify most of the belief systems that we've been having in place for quite some time. Take this for instance. If you are a physicist who has the capacity of using mathematical computations to measure the diameter of the Earth, does that mean that someone else who doesn't have that that capacity to also do the same mathematical computations as you isn't intelligent? Does that mean that intelligence is only limited to you who has the capacity to do those computations? That is specifically something that Howard Gardner, a very prominent psychologist, demystified. And with that, he came up with the theory of multiple intelligences. If you are someone who's really interested in this, you must have come across this quite often. It is a theory that has undergone quite some debate within a number of circles, among psychologists, amongst educators. And there's one thing that's for sure that everyone comes to the conclusion of, and that is, you aren't stupid. You just have a different form of intelligence. In other words, if you are to judge all fish by their ability to climb a tree, then you'll absolutely think that they are all stupid, but they are very intelligent when it comes to water. But they might not be just as intelligent when they are climbing a tree. Most educators normally find challenges with this because you will find a student who gets maybe 10% in mathematics, but this student gets maybe 90% in music. Most of our education systems will classify the student as dumb, as someone who's daft, someone who's dull. Yet their kind of intelligence is oriented in a totally different direction as compared to this the kind of intelligence that we have all been raised to believe. So let's have a look at some of these intelligences. As you can see on the screen, there are a number of intelligences. And if we are to count together, I think they come to 9. It's these 9 intelligences. This is like a categorization for all forms of intelligences. So it's not to say that someone who is good with numbers is not necessarily intelligent. They are also intelligent, but they have a different kind of intelligence as compared to someone who's good with something else. So let's begin with a form of intelligence that most of the time we underlook, yet it has been extremely significant even in our evolution as human beings. That is naturalistic intelligence. You should note that most of these other intelligences, throughout history, they have been named as soft skills, they have been looked at as interpersonal skills, yet they are intelligences in themselves. Like someone who really knows how to do something of that nature will be in position to as well guide someone else who might not necessarily be good in that particular aspect. So that in itself makes that person intelligent. So getting back to naturalistic intelligence. Now, what makes it special with naturalistic intelligence, it's more, we can look at it as the human ability to discriminate amongst, normally they can be living things, that is like plants and animals. There are these people who have that unique capability of looking at plants, and they can easily look at one, categorize it, and differentiate it from another seemingly very similar plant. Maybe there are some plants whose leaves look quite the same, but these are people who have that unique ability to differentiate them. And it's really owing like to someone else who lacks that kind of ability. These people are really good at it, and it has had a historical advantage to it, because remember, someone who had that capacity of differentiating these kinds of plants and animals, maybe someone, take for instance with early man, someone who had the capacity of identifying the footprints of a particular animal as they are hunting, had the ability of either seeking a safe haven in case the animal is dangerous, or going after the animal in case they want food. And it is something that really helped man in evolution. Someone who didn't have that kind of intelligence most probably didn't is might not be part of our later ancestors, the ones we can easily track for the past 20 generations. So we see that this kind of intelligence for in the modern times, it is really important in that there are some people who have that unique ability different. Also, it could be with clouds, it could be with rocks, it could be with anything that's in nature. So with clouds, there are those people also who can just look at the clouds and they tell you within the next 12 hours it will rain. Maybe within the next 8 hours, maybe there will be a blizzard. And once it happens, people are awed. They wonder how it actually came to happen that way. But this is one of those intelligences that really helps them in that line. And we see most of the people right now who are botanists, people who work with meteorological departments, most of them find this as a very good advantage in their kind of work, because if you have the capacity of being in position like to analyze and tell different make different predictions about the future, about the weather, about the climate, then it makes you a very so but that's not all. That's just one of the intelligences. If I might interest see on sorry about that. We have some technical glitches, that is some internet connection issues, but all the same, we go on with the show. Getting to musical intelligence. I'm sure this is self-explanatory in itself. Someone who has the capacity to discern pitch, rhythm, timbre, tone, like people who can easily recognize beats, create them, reproduce them, reflect on music. Like this is an ability that is normally had by like composers. These are musicians, vocalists, and some very, very sensitive listeners. These people really have a very unique ability. To some other people, it's music. Like to myself, once you listen to music, that's music. All music is music. But to others, they will be in position to analyze it to the uniquest detail. But it is something that is extremely important in some areas. We see that there are a number of people who have gone on to use this as in their lines of careers. We see producers, we see vocalists, professional vocalists, professional musicians. So it is something that is greatly important. Interestingly, like for these people, there is that affective connection between the music and their emotions. Like they can listen to the music and they have a lot that they can relate it to. Like it is something that they have that unique attachment to. They have the capability of listening to a very nice beat, and they actually show you why a particular beat is better than another, why a particular set of lyrics fits with a particular beat much better than another, unlike others. So there are people who are naturally gifted at this. So it is something that is quite interesting. And they are usually very aware of sounds that most of us might miss. Like this could be in nature. So someone who's good at this, you'll normally find them humming to themselves. They will be creating their own beats. They will be like they have that ability to just create beats out of anything. Like some people with this ability. So it's a very, very, very interesting form of intelligence. Then there is that form of intelligence that most of us are accustomed to, that most of us have been judged based on since time immemorial. That is the logical, mathematical intelligence. So with this, the person has the ability to calculate, quantify, maybe make hypotheses, and make like those complete mathematical operations, create relationships and connections between between different sets of data. Like it is some interesting form of intelligence in that these people have the ability like to create relationships between different sets of information which any other person just looks at and ignores. Well, it's a form that we are normally accustomed to, but we see, just like everyone, I'm sure, knows very well that that sequential reasoning, that inductive or deductive thinking, those deductive and inductive thinking patterns, they are not common to every human being. So also, someone who has that form of intelligence has a way they can harness it and they can build on it to ensure that they can attain the best out of life. We find people who are like programmers, data scientists, data analysts. They are usually very good in this area because it's a core in the field that they are in. It's something that you really have to put your heart to, and something that you need to fully understand, and something that you really need to apply, especially in the kind of work that you are doing. Okay. So I'm sure so far you already know where you lie. You can already gauge and see the kinds of intelligences that you have. Maybe in the meantime, you can be making those. You can be grading yourself like on a scale of 1 to 10. Where do you think you lie? Where does your naturalistic intelligence lie on a scale of 1 to 10? Do you think you are on a 9 or 2 or 3? And don't forget to drop that in the comment section. But yeah, we now proceed to another form of intelligence that most of the time is ignored. In fact, it was also added to the list much later than all the others. This is the existential intelligence. So existential intelligence, it's unique in that it is that form of intelligence, that human ability to tackle deep questions about human existence. Things like the meaning of life. Why are we alive? Why are we here? And then for believers, they can start asking questions like, who is God? Why did he create us? Is God amongst us? Or how does he look like? How can you determine whether he is in our environs? Why do we die? Why are we here in the first place? Is good good? Like, there are people who are really good at asking such questions. Like, there are those now who will make deductions based on that information on such thoughts, to also come up with businesses, to come up with innovations, to come up with a number of things that they feel will benefit the human race. Maybe here I can use the example of Elon Musk of SpaceX. We see that in one of the interviews, he says one of the biggest motivations behind him setting up SpaceX, the company, is giving the human race the capacity to explore space, to explore beyond planet Earth. That is something that comes out of the question of, why exactly are we alive? Are we meant to only be locked down on this earth as we know it, or we have the capacity of exploring beyond the earth as we know it? Yeah, so that is existential intelligence. I'm quite sure you're now assessing yourself. If you are on a 9, you can give me a virtual high five, because with this kind of intelligence, it's you're bound to make a huge difference in the philosophical world, especially. You have a very bright future ahead of you as a philosopher, which is good in itself. You can join the leagues of Aristotle, Plato, and all the other philosophers the biggest philosophers that we know in humankind. Okay, so that is existential intelligence. Then here comes another form of intelligence, which, according to our chart, it's interpersonal intelligence. It is one of those intelligences that most of the time is labeled as soft skill. It is usually labeled as not necessarily as a form of intelligence, but as an added ability that someone has that enables this person employable. Some people call those employable skills, like someone who's good at teamwork and all that. However, it is classified as a form of intelligence by Gardner because of a number of reasons. Not everyone has the capacity to effectively understand and interact with others. That's a given. Like, I personally admit that is something I sometimes struggle with. It's not very easy for each and every human being to be it's not easy for each and every human being to be friendly to everyone. It's not easy for them to understand everyone's emotions and play by their, okay, not necessarily play by their rules, but it is, and accommodate that in their speech, in the way they interact with them. And this is a unique gifting that people with this kind of ability have. They are so sensitive to the moods of others, to the temperaments of other people, and they can easily entertain multiple perspectives. Like, they can understand you irrespective of the fact that maybe you disagree with them fundamentally, irrespective of the fact that maybe you are at a point in your life when you're not willing to be with anyone or to share with anyone. the people with this kind of intelligence can easily accommodate you the way you are, understand you, motivate you, and they have that capacity of communicating directly with your emotions, directly with your feelings. And it is something that social workers, not doctors, social workers, they are teachers, they are actors, politicians, especially politicians. It is something that they really thrive on because they have the capacity of interacting and communicating directly with their electorate. So the electorate is convinced, irrespective of all the challenges that they are facing, they are convinced beyond any reasonable doubt to go and tick their names in that ballot box. So it is something that is really unique, something that's really crucial, especially in a world where being able to relate with others, being able to interact with others plays a very big role in first of all, your ability to be employed somewhere and the ability to also sell your products to a particular person. Then there is also, according to our chart in the lower left corner, the bodily kinesthetic form of intelligence. So, just like the word itself suggests, this gives someone the capacity or the capability to manipulate objects and use a variety of physical skills. During this generation, well, we've been blessed to witness a number of personalities who are good with various sports, who are good with a number of things with regards to using their bodies. The reason as to why you can easily get to know about all this is predominantly because of the advancements, obviously, in the technology. We can now see all these people on TV, unlike maybe in the 1940s, in the 1800s. We can as well Google search them and we get to know them better. We can relate with them sometimes. So we can easily get to know their capabilities even without meeting them in person. So in football, we have the likes of Diego Maradona, we have Ronaldinho, we have Ronaldo Cristiano, we have Messi. These are people who have proved beyond reasonable doubt that they are extremely good at this. And giving an example here, if you give Messi a math test and maybe he doesn't do that well, I'm not saying that Messi is not good at math, but I'm just giving this as an example. If you have to give him a math test and doesn't do as well, it doesn't mean that Messi is not intelligent, because if you're to give him a ball instead of a mathematical test, I'm quite sure you will be very amazed. You will absolutely change your mind within the next 5 minutes, because he has the capacity of creating that union between their body and their mind. They can play with the ball in any way that they want. This is a person who can use the back heel to score a goal, unlike others who would be thinking about now the mathematical calculations behind the ball, the projectiles, how it's going to land and then how it's going to rise, angle of elevation, angle of depression. That's not what will make the ball enter the goal. It will be the bodily kinesthetic intelligence, that capacity for you to create that union between your mind and your body, and making it possible now to control anything else by perfectly using that union. That is the bodily kinesthetic union. And now, there is this form of intelligence as well, which is a little controversial sometimes, and which most people also find it's like a cliche. Everyone knows that this kind of intelligence is there, but no one, everyone rarely talks about it. That is the linguistic intelligence. So with the linguistic intelligence, someone has the ability to think in words, use language to express and appreciate complex meaning. It could be the meaning of life. It could be someone has the capacity of interpreting a particular situation, a particular um, anything in life, but by using words. With linguistic intelligence, it has the capacity of making a huge impact. We've seen writers, composers, people like Shakespeare who have impacted the world in so many different ways simply because they are good with words. We have one of the most contemporary um, people with this kind of intelligence. We can say it's someone like Barack Obama, who has the capacity of playing around with words, and everyone is awed by what he has said. We can also look at Martin Luther King Jr. The list is endless, but these people have the capacity of playing around with words, and they can communicate directly with your emotions, directly with your soul, specifically using words and literature. These people can make very good poets, journalists, novelists, and very good public speakers, motivational speakers, and it's really it's that kind of intelligence that has a very, 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 very great capacity to leave an indelible mark on people's hearts. By it can really impact them. It can really create some serious impact in their lives. So, Brenda, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We were discussing linguistic intelligence, and our viewers were already appreciating. We can check in the comment section. Already, some of them are grading themselves, they are rating themselves. We've discussed 7 different kinds of intelligence so far. So, what are your views with regards to the linguistic intelligence?
Linguistic intelligence, verbal intelligence, usually it comes hand in hand with the logical in the world we live in because the two go together. You have to be really smart expressively in word and speech. So most times we come across people who prefer to write things down, prefer to draw, to write your story rather than tell you exactly what is going on. And this happens a lot more in our schools, in the education system. But personally, I respect these people a lot. In an African setting, reading is not our highest quality, so they are underrated very much. And I feel like they're some of the smartest people because we read books. They are written by this kind of people.
Okay.
I think they're really good.
Okay. Interesting. So I actually concur with you. I do believe that most of these people are really underrated. Some of them, maybe their work is not really analyzed by a number of people, their target audiences, and yeah. So, what do you think? Do you think it has played a big role, maybe in the development of some sectors, like within East Africa?
Partially, not as much as it should be.
Okay. Okay, thank you very
Because
much. Thank you very much for your.
most people are sidelined with whatever you're writing, it has to be logical. The creativity is limited.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for those very interesting views. Well, let's go straight to the intrapersonal intelligence. Intrapersonal intelligence. Brenda, do you mind telling us more about that?
Intrapersonal intelligence, according to what I understand, is someone fully understanding themselves. This is between you, your inner self, your feelings, your flaws, your strength, your weaknesses. That is why they say most times you have to love yourself before you love someone. You have to first understand how you work as you to fully understand other people's emotions.
Okay. That's actually very good. Maybe the only thing I can add to that is with intrapersonal intelligence, we see people have not only the capacity of understanding themselves, but they also have the capacity of understanding the human condition. So, in other words, they will have the capacity of understanding human beings as we are, as like our weaknesses as human beings, our strengths as human beings. So, in other words, they have a very deep understanding of self and of the human condition in general. And a number of these people can make very good psychologists, spiritual leaders, and as well philosophers, obviously, hand in hand with the existential intelligence that we discussed earlier on. Uh, they are also usually very aware of their own feelings, people with this kind of intelligence, and very self motivated. Um, this is a trait that I feel, at a personal level, this is my opinion. For you to be in position to effectively utilize all the other forms of intelligence to make an impact in the world, this is that form of intelligence that you really need to make, like, that you really need, like, to hone as an individual, that you really need, like, to ensure that you bring to your A game, like to your to the very best.
It's one of the
It's
basics, I think.
exactly. Yeah, so you talked about the aspect of loving yourself before you love anyone else. Do you mind telling us
Yeah.
more about that?
What I mean in this context, definition has so many twists and turns. Some think of it in a spiritual way. But what I meant here is by the time we realize we have so many multiple intelligences and so many others coming up that we don't know, we all belong in different fields, different sectors. So it is up to us to understand fully, what am I good at? What is my strongest intelligence? What can I improve on? And if you do not understand you are not good at something and accept it's not a bad thing, then you're not going to improve on it. So understanding yourself is realizing, okay, I love music, but I am not good with these sounds. But I'm so good at acting. That is my most dominant thing. I can work on it, but I admit it is not what I'm good at. That is a start.
Okay. Well, interesting. That's very interesting. Um, so still on the very aspect of self-love, we see there are a number of people who have taken this a little out of context. This has been a subject of discussion for a number of people quite often. So what do you feel is the true meaning of self-love? Like, if you are to discuss the aspect of loving yourself at a personal level, what do you feel is the true meaning of self-love in itself?
Personally, I think self love is different for all of us. If I'm to give a personal view, as according to me, is understanding I look this way, I make the choices I make because I feel they are good for me. They will make me happy before other people. You understand? I have me first. It is not selfish.
Okay.
It is not for selfish reasons. I am saying this because if I am happy, there is a very high possibility of me making someone happy because I might understand them better or learn something. But if I'm not comfortable with this is me, this is not what I'm good at, this is what I'm good at, it is hard to deal with other people because you feel like you always have a question mark. Why me? Why not this? Why? Which doesn't help.
Okay. Wow. That's very interesting indeed. Actually, for all the viewers, in case you have any questions, you can throw them in the comment section, and we guarantee you we will be answering them with time. By the end of the discussion, we have our entire team, which it's already it's also watching the show, and we'll be answering all your queries. I personally will be answering most of the queries that you'll be raising alongside Brenda. So with self-love, in other words, yeah, from what I have picked from your sharing is you first have to think about the self before you
Yes.
necessarily spread the love. And that's a
Yes.
very, very interesting point. Yeah, so we'll proceed with that discussion in the comment section. Otherwise, let's get to the final form of intelligence with Brenda in the show. And she will be telling us a little bit more about spatial intelligence. Personally, all I know about this form of intelligence is someone is thinking in 3D. What that means, maybe Brenda can tell us more.
That is one way to put it. Personally, spatial intelligence is one of my favorites as me, because when I see something, I get it. I get the whole picture of what you're trying to say. So if you're telling me a story and you draw for me some images, you draw for me some cartoons, paint me a picture, draw this, like a story is like a story for me. I can easily follow up with what you're
Okay.
saying, and I can easily bring your idea to life if I picture it in my head and it makes sense. So these are people who are more intrigued by the idea of imagination. They are very good at imagining. So if you tell someone, I need to build a house, but I think I want a veranda looking this way, exterior decoration looking this way, you're giving them a platform to play with their imagination and come up with something like, does this work for you? I'm talking about architects in this sense. Or we read
Okay.
maps. I did geography in high school, so we used to calculate the height of contours and those things. So to you, you can look at a map, you're like, okay, according to what we were taught, if there are so many circles or so many things, that means it is quite steep or not that steep, depending on how you understand the drawings. So these are people who understand drawings, they understand maps, they understand graphical things. Explain it to them in that context, they can bring you your idea to life.
Oh, okay. Um, uh, it's that form of intelligence. I've personally found it a little tricky myself. Like there are times when I used to say that I love art, but art doesn't love me back
I think that's a
because
bit different.
yes, I love. Okay. So thank you so much, Brenda, for joining the discussion. It has been a very,
Welcome.
very interesting discussion. We will be discussing the temperaments in a later discussion as Craft Mind. So today our focus has been mainly on the multiple intelligences. But to all our viewers, one thing is really key. If you have been listening in from the onset, we request you for one thing. For us, each intelligence is concerned on a 1 to 10 scale. And then you give us your feedback in the comment section and we'll proceed with the discussion. But still, we under special intelligence before we move away. You see, it's something that I usually used to find little tricky. I used to wonder in high school, we used to have those classmates who would find it very easy to put like a chemistry calculation or maybe things within the periodic table. They would There's a way they would lay them on a particular piece of paper in a graphical, in a pictorial format, and they understand it better that way. Yet for you, you look at the pictorial and you get lost from the onset. I don't know, Brenda, did you have such characters as well?
You were talking about me because I wasn't really good with chemistry, but I was good at understanding drawings. So literally what you're explaining here is that is not your strongest multiple
Okay.
intelligence, but maybe it is for me.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay, so one final word to our viewers with regards to the intelligences. Brenda?
Multiple intelligences fascinate me a lot because I'm a curious person naturally, and I feel like there is something you can learn about someone else if only you're open to it. So all these intelligences were created or they exist for all of us, they exist in all of us. Maybe we have grown up in settings that do not allow us to practice, step out of the logical comfort zone because that is by far the most common multiple intelligence. But I always feel like if you have the time, if you're curious, if you have something you want to dig upon, please go for it before you die. There is a lot you can find out. There is a lot of hobbies you can pick up. There is a lot of skills you can polish on. And I feel like everyone is smart. You just need to know in which field and what can you improve on. That's all.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you very much, Brenda. That was very, very interesting. That was very revolutionary. That was one of the best discussions we've had so far. I'm quite sure all our viewers out there have had something or two to learn from this discussion. And thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you all.
And my final word to everyone is, in case you are not very good at the logical mathematical form of intelligence, either in high school or maybe you're still in school up to now, we have some good news for you. You're not dull, or you're not less intelligent. Okay, that's a better way of phrasing it. Not less intelligent, as others might posit, but the best thing to do is to discover your strengths, discover your forms of intelligence, and then build on them, find out how best you can leverage your forms of intelligence at a particular point where you're really good to become the best that you can ever be. And one thing's for sure, you can be the best there is. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining us. Have a great evening or day based on time zone in which you are. Bye.